Tell me if you've heard this before. The Florida Panthers get a win in overtime and once again take a 2-0 series lead. On today's edition of the show, we'll be talking about how the Panthers do it again and the fact that this team continues to play well, whether they're ahead, behind, mid-period adjustments, and of course, the goaltending coming up big for this Florida Panthers team.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Sunday, May 21st edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez. You can follow me on Twitter at MondoMan12. Follow the show account on Twitter at LO_FLA Panthers. And thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. And shout out to our everydayers who come here and get your daily Florida Panthers fix, whether it's a win, whether it's a loss, whether it's off-season drama, whether it's big blockbuster trades, you name it. Thank you to the everydayers who come here every single day. And man, am I pumped for this Florida Panthers team and all of South Florida too, that it's just a big celebration of the game of hockey as the Florida Panthers get this another overtime win, now 6-0 in overtime. And you got to think about the start that the Panthers had, not the best start as well, and the fact that the Carolina Hurricanes, to get the first 20 shots in 12 minutes as well, even get a goal out of it, and the Florida Panthers, they bent but didn't break. But we do have a special guest here on the show. It is a very familiar voice that you guys have heard on this podcast before. He is the former co-host of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. It is my good friend and yours, Frank Rekas.
Good morning, everybody, I think. Or is it good evening? I don't know. It depends on when the heck you're listening. But really great to be here. Armando, thanks for having me on. And, man, what a game, huh?
Absolutely. What a game, Frank. And you think about the situation that the Panthers were in and what the Carolina Hurricanes were in going into Saturday night. Of course, going off this, playing almost 140 minutes of hockey, 7 full periods for the most part, and then no practice on Friday. Very, you could only imagine that there was very limited ice time in between games 1 and 2, and then continuing to know what the game plan was. And then, of course, on the Carolina Hurricane side of things, making a goalie change. Of course, I was thinking more of Freddie Anderson's history and what has happened with the injury front, and of course, with Bobrovsky getting, if he were to get some rest versus if he were not. If you trust Alex Lyon to come in after a few weeks off versus how you trust Bobrovsky to come in for a few weeks off. And we saw that in game 4 against the Boston Bruins in round 1, but the difference in these two teams and how they approached it as well. And then, just like I mentioned at the top, Frank, the Carolina Hurricanes got 20 shots on goal in the first 12 minutes. And then the Panthers, after that, didn't allow a single shot on goal for the next 15, including a killing off a huge penalty before Sasha Barkov scores that goal. But man, it's just incredible how this Panthers team continues to, they bend but don't break.
Well, a lot of things really went right tonight. And I know a lot of people were probably nervous about the opening few minutes. And to me, I think the Panthers played a perfect first period road game, especially after that, monster game they played a couple nights ago. 7 periods of hockey. You knew Carolina was going to come out fast. You knew they wanted to score early, get the crowd in the game, and that happened. But the Panthers just needed to weather the storm, and I'm pretty sure that was the game plan that the coaching staff, led by Paul Maurice, had. Is, guys, look, play our game, stick to our game, don't get too fancy, don't get overly aggressive, just play the way that we've been playing, and the night's going to take care of itself. Obviously, a lot of confidence in Bob to come back after how many saves did he make the other night? Like close to
60,
I don't know,
65,
60,
I believe.
65 saves.
63.
Yeah. And I'm sure it was a conversation, Bob, how do you feel? Are you okay? And I'm sure the veteran that he is, I mean, this is where he shines, he is just in a zone. And I'm glad we didn't go to Alex Lyon. No offense to Alex Lyon, but Bob is in a zone. You got to go with the hot hand. And I'm sure he rested, on Friday. And he was obviously ready to go tonight. And the first goal, it was a bit of a fluky goal. You can't really blame him for that one. He played outstanding. As did the team in front of him.
Yeah, you see that Bob dishes it out to the half wall, and then a redirection by Chatfield there. Really hard puck to stop, and only one goal given up at 5-on-5 in 2 games. I mean, even strength, 27 of 28, a total of 37 of 38 on the night. So I'm not going to do the quick math in my head right now. I'll do I'll save that for later. But well, quick math is 83. So 82 of 83 for Sergei Bobrovsky at even strength. In the first 2 games of this series, and then you see the game starting to slow down. I mean, in your opinion, what do you think what was said in the locker room between periods 1 and 2? And of course, we see this in playoff hockey where not every period is the same. And of course, there was that 15-minute stretch was in between the periods, and like I said, shortly after a kill, Aleksander Barkov scores. And it was off a turnover by the Carolina Hurricanes. I believe it was Brett Pesce, and then Mahura just gets it to Barkov fakes between the legs and then goes backhand there. So what do you think that the conversation was in the locker room after the first?
I mean, I think if it was me and I was in there, it would have been like, boys, we got them exactly where we want them. We're in this game. We're only down 1 goal. There's no way they could keep the pace that they played in the first period. They're not going to be able to do that for 2 more periods based on the amount of game they played a couple nights ago. Just stick to your game. Don't make any mistakes, and they will make one, and then we're going to capitalize on it, and then we're going to have a brand new game, and then it's going to be ours to take. So stick with the plan. Keep working hard, keep working together. Don't try to be too fancy. This was one of those games where you don't want to be making a lot of passes. It didn't look that way when we first started out, and then we kind of got back to our, dump it in, go get it, turn their defenseman around, and it worked. It just worked.
Yeah, and that's the experience. Once again, the experience factor that comes with the coaching as well, and many praises to go around for this Florida Panthers team. I mean, once again, it's really difficult for the Carolina Hurricanes to get up the gut in the middle of the ice, but it also goes to show the Carolina Hurricanes score by committee in for their team, and credit to them. They when they do find clutch scoring, they're able. It's different players every single time, but just goes to show that it's for the Florida Panthers, the difference is the superstar players coming out. I know they're missing an Andrei Svechnikov. I know they're missing a Max Pacioretty on their team, but both goals by the Florida Panthers. I mean, even though the third period, I believe it was like 4 shots to 3 with 2 minutes left in the third period. It was tightly checked game. No time and space was given by either team. And let's not forget that the Florida Panthers only had 2 shots on goal in the third period of game 1 as well. Yeah. But you also got to we also got to think a little bit that it's the superstars that are the ones coming up big once again, and just goes to show like the top end talent. It's the Florida Panthers that did it. And what more can we say about Matthew Tkachuk? Does it this time again, but on the power play, which Mahura was going to get a clean shot if it weren't for that hooking call by Kotkaniemi. And they get it around, get around the boards, get a little bit of tic-tac-toe, put them out of position. We kind of saw a goal like that in game one, where the Carolina Hurricanes did that on the power play, but now it's the tables flipped for the Panthers. Just what do you think about that goal, and how, and of course your thoughts on what Matthew Tkachuk has meant to this team?
Well, I think the teams are relatively similar. I was saying to myself during the first period, Carolina does a really, really good job of keeping the Panthers on the perimeter. And there were probably one of the biggest reasons that, we hardly had any shots in the first 10, 12 minutes was specifically because of that. So the Panthers kind of had to get back to, their game a little bit. But the play of Tkachuk, he has come as advertised the entire season. Very fitting that he's the guy that scores the game-winning goal, and I kind of like how he's, points to the exit door, like, all right, let's get the heck out of here. We got to get on the bus. He's a gamer, man, and that's why we got him. And he has proven Bill Zito that he made the exact right call, and you got to love his energy, you got to love his attitude, and a very clutch and timely goal. And, he had been quiet for a little bit up until this series, but he's coming on strong. And, right now, him and Bob are in the lead for Conn Smythe, if you ask me.
Yeah, I completely agree. And let's not also forget that each team had a goal disallowed. One that was from Forsling from the high slot that eventually was reviewed for offside, as Bennett just gained the zone right before he got the puck. And then another one where Gudas had a little bit of a lazy clear, but it was hard to see with the pixels of the camera as well where the puck came out. But the referees did rule that it in fact did come out of the zone. It was a little hard for me to see on that one. So the Panthers dodged a little a bullet there. I mean, as did Carolina too. But yeah, they still found a way. They still found a way to do it. And this time we didn't have to wait until stay up until 2 a.m. to get to get a result. And it's a 2-0 series lead. But we're going to transition over to segment number 2. We're going to discuss more about I want to actually talk in segment 2, Frank, about the impact of the Stahl brothers on the night and on this team as in this playoff run. And I also want to discuss more about our personal 3 stars of the game in game 2. We're going to discuss we're going to do that on the other side of the break here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. But first, we're going to tell you all about Bird Dogs. And I look better and feel great when wearing Bird Dogs. They're stretchy fabric and that my legs look great, and they're comfier than my other shorts and pants. They give me the freedom to wear one pair of shorts, pants on the golf course, to meeting, to date, and hanging out with friends. Bert Kreischer wakes up to his lake house wearing Bird Dogs, goes for a swim, smokes a cigar, grills burgers, chills with his family, all in the shorts that he associates with the summer. Bird Dogs. College football nerds say that they are the perfect pants for dads and have a little bit of extra gut. Bird Dogs makes them look great and feel comfortable. Part of my take, PFT famously wears pants, and only the shorts he truly loves are Bird Dogs. Go to birddogs.com/lockedonAHL. When you enter promo code LockedOnAHL, they'll throw you a free custom Bird Dogs Yeti style tumbler with every order. Once again, that is birddogs.com/lockedonAHL and enter code LockedOnNHL. Segment number 2 here on this Sunday, May 21st edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. As the Florida Panthers are coming off a 2-1 overtime win over the Carolina Hurricanes. A few players to discuss for this Panthers team. Actually 4. I'm going to go with 4. The Stahl brothers. So there's 2. there was a situation where Sergei Bobrovsky was out of the crease, and Eric Staal made a great a block with his neck. So great position, even though Bob was out of his net. Mark Staal was great on the penalty kill. There was the TNT broadcast showed a situation where he was just right in front of the crease and knowing when to get down. And of course, Brandon Montour had a great dive for the puck getting out of the zone that caused a 2-on-1. Unfortunately, Chucky missed the tape of Nick Cousins that caused an odd man rush going the other way to not get a shot on goal. But of course, Bobrovsky, which there were so many times where the Carolina Hurricanes were also getting so many rushes to the point where they were hesitating on which shot selections to take or whether to make that extra pass. And that just goes to show how locked in Sergei Bobrovsky is, that he is in the Carolina Hurricanes' heads, even on those odd man rushes, Frank.
Oh, gotta be. I mean, when you're getting those man advantages and you're hesitating, you're overthinking, you're overpassing, that starts to wear on you. And let's face it, there's a little bit of mental tiredness going on as well. So if these guys were a little bit more crisp, if they were a little bit more rested, they're definitely feeling the effects of a couple nights ago, as I'm sure the Panthers were too. But both teams are very well coached. It's just that Bobrovsky is in such a zone that it's given the Panthers a tremendous edge in all facets of the game, and it's really working out in their favor. And Carolina right now just doesn't have an answer. I mean, 1 goal tonight, 2 goals the night before. It's just, they're a good team. They're a good scoring team. But this is what happens when you get to the playoffs, especially when you're this deep. The defense takes over. The defensive schemes take over, and you got a hot goalie. Everything is happening at the right time. Can't argue with any of that.
Yeah, and for Sergei Bobrovsky, I mean, it's so like, and I remember going. I want to go back a few years when you hosted the show with Josh Lick, and how you two pounded the table for Sergei Bobrovsky and not wanting to put the blame on him as well. Just, I want to give you the floor and give you an opportunity to discuss how far he personally has come from that point that you were pounding the table to this.
He is probably one of the hardest working guys on the team. He's extremely dedicated, and he takes these, games, especially the losses, personally. And I know you've been in the dressing room after a lot of games, and I've been there as well. And I've seen him after they've won. He doesn't want to take a lot of the credit. He always likes to credit the team. But when he has had a bad game, or when he wasn't at his best performance, he would admit it. He takes it personally, and he is a true professional. And I think he played through some injuries back then. I think he was getting adjusted to the team. The team was getting adjusted to him. They were going through a lot of stuff, and he was taking a hell of a lot of criticism. And I don't know about you, but I would have to think that even though I'm a professional, that $10 million a year weighing on me every single game, especially when I'm not winning, that starts to take a toll on you. But we fast forward to now. He's worked out all of his kinks. The team has a lot of confidence in him, which I think has gone a long way for the performance of where they are right now. And you can see he is truly the backbone. So, I mean, credit to him for, sticking with it. And I've always believed in him. I've never been overly harsh on him or his performance. And, it's a team game. Yes, you want your goalie to steal a few. And I think he's stealing a few right now, which is really when you want him to steal a few games.
Yeah, no doubt. And of course, the Panthers, once again, this is another game where they go to the box quite a few times as well. This time they go 3 for 3 on the penalty kill. And during the regular season, I've also spoken about how the amount of times you go to the box doesn't necessarily define how successful you are as far as like wins and losses. I mean, the stat of Paul Maurice when he was with the Winnipeg Jets during that span, his team was the second most penalized team in that span, and number one was Pittsburgh, and they have 2 cups in that span. So just goes to show that it doesn't always reflect on that. I mean, we saw how frustrating it was in the regular season, as far as most penalties taken, but some of the timely penalty kills as well for this team. I mean, once again, I can't emphasize how big that kill was before the first goal. How have you seen the evolution of this just the special teams, on both sides, but especially on the defensive end?
Well, I think defensively, on the penalty kill, they're just doing the right things. They're giving up the long shots, but they're keeping people out of the crease area, which in the past, as we all know, has been a tremendous problem. People used to, get in front of Bob and, start eating a hot dog, and they'd get their pass, and then boom, it's a goal. And because of the way that they're kind of collapsing a little bit, they're forcing the outside shot. Bob is getting to see almost all of those shots, and they're also doing a better job of clearing the puck out and, not giving up as many good opportunities. So that's been a huge difference, and you're going to need that in the playoffs because we are a little bit aggressive. We are a little, we rely a lot on forechecking, and sometimes when you're doing that, you're gonna naturally create a penalty. I mean, we're hitting bodies, we're banging the boards, so guys like Sam Bennett are gonna get a little bit more time in the box just because of their style. So we absolutely have to be ready for that. And it's been a good progression that we've been able to kill off some penalties. And tonight for sure was huge. We could have had a problem in the Toronto series, but we were able to hold off and overcome some of that. And it's just kind of rolling over into here at the right time into this series.
And even you're starting to see it reflect on players like Anthony Duclair as well as the Panthers are. They're doing it right as the opposition is getting trying to gain the zone as well, and that is probably the outside of pinning them to the boards in your own zone. I mean, it's starting in that part of the ice too, and it's just really impressive how the Florida Panthers they're not intimidated by anyone by any stretch of the imagination, and it just goes to show. Let me look at hits real quick. 30-24 was the hit advantage for the Florida Panthers in this one, and and of course it's the tone setter, of course, is Radko Gudas. I mean, he had 12 hits in game one against the Carolina Hurricanes. I that one I did not mention on the show tonight. He had
3.
He had 3. Okay, but not as many as game one, but still, it's he is the tone setter, and even if he's not the one doing it all the time, people still pick that up, and that's a great thing about having Gudas on the team as well. So it's just you're not gonna get by easily and gain the zone as easily through the Florida Panthers. But we're going to transition over to segment number 3, where we are going to give our 3 stars of the game on the night, and we are going to just discuss how the Florida Panthers approach is going to be now that they have a 2-0 series lead going back to Sunrise. We're going to discuss that next on the other side of the break here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast with Frank Rekas.
Your Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Third and final segment here on this Sunday, May 21st edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. And as the Florida Panthers take a 2-1 overtime win and a 2-0 series lead heading to Sunrise, Game 3 on Monday night, and 6-0 in overtime, Frank. And here's a little bit of a superstition. Every time I'm on the Twitter and I tweet that the game is going to overtime, you know what I never say? I never say this. I never say that the Florida Panthers record in overtime going into the overtime period. It's just a superstition.
Then don't start.
And I'm not going to. I will not. So I'm glad that I've continued that trend as the Florida Panthers just continue to do it. I mean, they have 10 wins, and 60% of them are overtime wins, and just incredible how this team just digs deep and forechecks at the right time, creates a mistake for the opposition, and just continues to get the game winner. I was, as far as my Bucci overtime challenge, I was wrong tonight, but I was right on Monday as far as choosing the winner for the Bucci overtime challenge. But let's discuss our 3 stars of the game for the Florida Panthers. Number 1 for me is Tkachuk. 2 is Barkov, and I'm going to cheat a little bit here as far as the 3rd star, and it's going to be 2 people. It's going to be the Stahl brothers. I'm going to put them as the 2 star, as the 3 as number 3.
Okay.
But I'm doing it as far as reverse order, putting Chucky as the first one. But the Stahls are going to be tied for 3rd as far as mine, as far as how they perform, especially on the PK as well. So I'm gonna give them an honorable mention there. How about you?
I got Chuck number 1. I got Barkov number 2, and I'm going with Bob at number 3.
Mm-hmm. Good.
I mean, at
good
least,
choice.
yeah. I mean, at least in my eyes, the core players, the 3 stars, they showed up tonight when we needed them the most.
Yeah, I've given Bob a few games in a row of being a star, but I wanted to change it up a little bit.
Share the love.
It's not every game that it's not every game that you'll see the Stahl brothers as far as them being stars of the game. But I really thought that they were showing up. And as far as the opposite side of it, I thought Jordan Stahl was great too. I mean, there's a few hacks that he had on Sergei Bobrovsky after a shot that he had, and the Panthers were quick to defend their man, and of course off of turnovers, Jordan Stahl was there to get an opportunity as well, going forehand, backhand on one opportunity as well. And listen, there's pride on the line as far as these brothers, of course, and of course with Jared being an assistant coach in the Panthers organization. Oh, also the Florida Everblades, they're up 2-0 in their series as well over the Newfoundland Growlers, which is the Toronto Maple Leafs affiliate, Frank. So the Panthers continue to own the Maple Leafs on the ECHL and NHL level. Fun fact there, but it's just good vibes all over here in Florida Panthers land here. But the Panthers are going back home. They continue to just find a way to win in hostile environments. Now I'm trying to do the count in my head. 8-1 on the road in the postseason.
That's tremendous, man.
And they're 2 wins away from tying the record for most consecutive road wins in a row in a postseason run. Do you know who's number 1? Do you remember?
I might, but go ahead.
The 2012 LA Kings.
Okay. Yeah.
They were
they were the 8th seed that year, right?
They were the 8th seed that year in 2012.
Funny how that works sometimes.
So it's and there's been so many comparisons to this team and that 2012 team, Bob, to Jonathan Quick,
Nothing quick. Yep.
Barkov, to Anze Kopitar, Dustin Brown, Sam Bennett.
Yep.
You see so many comparisons from both of these teams and how they got to the run that they've been on, and the Panthers continue to it doesn't matter for them where they are. It doesn't matter what time they play. It doesn't matter whether it's been a quick turnaround from a game 7 to a game 1 in the next series or 5 days off there. And especially with the goaltending, that's the thing. There is Bob has been great whether there's been a quick turnaround or 5 days off, which is you worry going into a series because of routine. But this is it doesn't matter for him as well. But as far as that, the Panthers are going back to Sunrise. South Florida is going to be ready for this team, and if this region overall is as pumped as can be, especially since also the Miami Heat are up 2-0 in their series. If you're on the YouTube channel, this is on purpose. For the next 2 weeks, I'm going to wear something Florida Panthers related and something Miami Heat related on the show. We support both teams here, but how are you viewing the Panthers coming back home and even though their home record hasn't been the best in this postseason, how are you viewing the Panthers' approach to games 3 and 4?
Well, I think all the pressure right now is going to be on Carolina. They have to win game 3. I mean, so do the Panthers, but if Carolina goes down 3-0, I just don't see them coming back to win 4 in a row to take the series. The Panthers just have to stick to their game. Nothing fancy needs to be done here. They just got to come in, do the work, get the job done. I think they have the right mentality. I think they've, for once, I think we're finally seeing the playoff type of hockey that, we've all wanted to see, especially us on our little chat that we have going on with the boys. And, this is the kind of hockey that we've been wanting to see in the playoffs by this team for years. And they're finally showing it. It's gritty. It's not real fancy except for that goal by Barkov, which, oh my gosh, that was ridiculous. And I do remember because I was at the game when he did that against Montreal a few years ago. That was
Carey Price.
Yes, that was awesome. But
and he had a hat trick.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
But I give a lot of credit to Paul Maurice for the game plan, for the structure that they have, for the way he's managing the bench, for the way he's matching up the lines, the way he's handling the players. He should be getting a lot of credit for where this team is right now. I mean, obviously he's not the one on the ice, but he's the one that's pushing the buttons. And I got to tell you, he's been pushing a lot of the right buttons lately.
Yeah, no doubt, and that's where you can be a little thankful for someone like Maurice, especially. It's funny as well because of familiarity with Paul Maurice and Rod Brind'Amour, and there was actually an interview the other day when Rod Brind'Amour was asked about when Paul Maurice stripped Rod Brind'Amour of the C back in like 2009, 2010, and it was a very short response about not liking the way that Paul Maurice handled that situation. And it's funny because there was a silly conversation in our fan base about stripping the C from Barkov and then giving it to Tkachuk and all, which I always found silly in throughout the season. Of course, it's like, do you want the tension in the locker room? And there was an article by Pierre LeBrun about how Barkov is when the cameras aren't on, and we see the lead by example, but what we don't see, even though you and I have been in the locker rooms before, but even though they don't reveal much as well to us, of course, it's very close knit, tight to the vest as well. the way they approach things as well. And just Barkov growing before our very eyes too. I mean, at times, of course, we can see how he can be quiet on the offensive end, but I have no complaints about, especially what he did in the Toronto series, that he was the super quick to pucks in their own end, and quick to get pucks out for rushes, especially because he has two speedsters in Duclair and Verhaeghe, and especially Verhaeghe, who's a wicked shooter as well. And just that is what you see in someone like Sasha Barkov.
Well, and let's face it, we're asking him to play a 200-foot game. And against a team like Toronto, his responsibility is, to keep a couple of high-scoring people off the scoreboard. And he did that. And fortunately, we have enough offense, not only around him, but on some of the other lines where he's able to do that. And, I was guilty myself. Like, when is this guy going to score? When is he going to contribute? When is he going to put, some points on the board? But in reality, the supporting cast did exactly what they should have done. They supported him. So knowing that he's such a great two-way player, we sometimes need to take a step back and say, okay, if he's going to do that, then there's 17 other skaters that are going to have to step up and fill the gap or fill the void. And he's going to get his chances. He's going to get his time to create and his time to show that he still has that great offensive talent. And tonight he proved that. And you're right. We don't see what goes on behind closed doors. We don't see the leadership of any captain or whatever. And, it's not a secret. Barkov is not a vocal leader. And if anybody hasn't noticed that, you really haven't been watching. He's not going to be yelling. He's not going to be screaming. That's just not him. He just leads in other ways. Now, maybe when the doors are closed and they're in practice or another area, maybe that's when he does it. Who knows? But right now, everything is working, and you're not going to screw it up by, making a change, and just let them do their thing. Because I think they've all, at least the core that's been here for a while, him, Ekblad, Bobrovsky, a few other guys, they've learned, they know what they need to do, and they've got their head on straight. And with the addition of a few veteran players and realizing what it takes to win, they're starting to show that they have it in them.
Yeah, and for Barkov and then of course the questions of is this a good enough group to win with? And sometimes you just need a perfect storm, literally, to happen at a good time. And of course, when you're playing your backs against the wall since January, and then it lighting it up right when game 2 happens in the Boston series, and then having that momentum going and continuing too. You just it's just you feel on top of the world if you're the Panthers, and you feel like you just can't be stopped. It's like it's 0-0 once the postseason starts. Throw the records out the window. The Florida Panthers, they don't care about their seeding. They don't care about what happened in the trade deadline, cap, everything. It was a fresh start for them. It was a fresh start for Bobrovsky as well once he entered midway through the Boston series, and now 2 wins away for this Florida Panthers team before they're headed to the Stanley Cup final. Crazy to think that they're 2 wins away. Not counting down. I know a lot of people want to say 6 wins away, but I'm thinking 2. I'm only thinking 2. I'm not there quite yet. And Frank, I'm having the time of my life. I'm sure you are too.
I'm definitely enjoying it. It's great to see so well deserved for the players, the fan base, and the ownership group, and Bill Zito. And if anybody hasn't read the article on The Athletic that was done by Mark Lazarus today, you need to read it, because man, he covered all sorts of stuff. he left nothing out, and I just remember like, oh my gosh, I remember when that happened. Oh my God, I remember when that happened. It was really, it took you back to when this organization was a complete disaster, and how far they've come, and just how refreshing it is. And I think at least in the last 3-4 years, the biggest and boldest move was the trade for Tkachuk. And I think that's what has changed the culture. It's changed the attitude. And these guys just have a ton of confidence.
Yep. And whether it's your personal life, whether it's in your work, whether it's just out and about with your buddies, it can really change how you approach whichever part of life you go into. And it's that one word you just said, Frank, confidence. And the Florida Panthers definitely do have a lot of it. But Frank, I want to thank you for joining me on this live edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, a post-game edition of the show where the Florida Panthers are coming off a 2-1 victory over the Carolina Hurricanes. And this one, I see on my clock, it's 12:21 a.m. On a Sunday morning, and we're not waiting until 2 a.m. to cover a hockey game. So I'm not only very thankful for that, but very thankful for you to come on this show and recap it with me. So tell everybody where they can follow you online.
Well, thanks for having me, Armando. And yeah, if it was 2 o'clock, you'd probably have to wake me up to get on the show. But you can find me on my Twitter handle at Frank Rekas. It's that simple. And, I'm still here. I'm still around and still rooting for the Panthers to bring the whole thing home.
Awesome, Frank. Thank you so much. And I will see you next time, my friend.
All right. Thanks a lot. Thanks, everybody.
And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On NHL network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey with Flip Livingstone and Theo Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. And for the everydayers, make sure you come back on Monday morning as we will be previewing Game 3 of the Florida Panthers and the Carolina Hurricanes. Chances are we could be having a special guest on the show. Nothing announced yet, nothing confirmed, but make sure to come back on Monday's edition of the show where we will be previewing Game 3. So I'm Armando Velez with Frank Rekas, and you've been listening to the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.